So here I've got a compressor in OnShape. I'd like to make this for you in OnShape as well as making the same thing in FreeCAD at the same time, and that should be a pretty good criteria on comparing OnShape and FreeCAD. So hopefully it's helpful. This will be similar to the FreeCAD versus SolidWorks video that I did a while back. And I can start by creating a new document, and we'll call this there you go. On the top plane, I can create a sketch, and we'll move our view to the top. Thought I grabbed my circle there. We can give this a dimension. We can make that a diameter of 8. Now if I highlight the circle, you'll see that it's driving geometry, but I can use this button to switch it to construction, just like in FreeCAD. Now I can go to my 3-point arc. Oh, but that didn't quite come in the way that I wanted. Again, arc. Kind of a cool relation you don't see in FreeCAD is you can highlight these two and choose concentric, and it merges the centers of those arcs for you. I can choose these 3 points and go with horizontal, and then I can go with my dimension 0.0625, and OnShape completely did the wrong dimension. So Control Z works, but I think the cloud base kind of makes typing things quickly a little bit sporadic sometimes, because it missed the 0.0 and just did 625. All right, again with our smart dimension, we're going to go with 0.75 here. 0.25. We can give this outer arc a radius of, say, 4. Now I can choose the endpoint of this arc and this construction circle, and we'll choose coincident. Endpoint of this arc, construction circle, coincident. I'm going to change my arc back to a center point arc, and I can start to close my blade profile up by making the center, or the origin, my axis of rotation. And then I can do a line from here to here, and notice we have a shaded region that shows we've got an enclosed sketch. So I can complete this, and we can make the same thing in FreeCAD. So create new, go on to part design. We're going to create a body, create a sketch. XY plane, it would be the top plane in OnShape. And now I can choose construction geometry and make a circle. I've got currently settings for radius, so we'll give this a radius of 4, which is the diameter of 8 we gave before. I can go back to driving geometry, and I'll go to my rim point arcs. We're going to create 2. Then instead of concentric, we'll merge these points to get a concentric relation. And as before, highlight 3, horizontal. Drag this to a more ideal location. Shift H for a horizontal dimension. We're going to go with 0.0625. Shift R for a radius. The outside radius we can make 4. There we go. And then Shift H for a horizontal dimension. Whoop, I clicked the wrong thing. Shift H here and here. 0.75, Shift V for vertical, 0.25, and I can use coincident to finish up this sketch from this circle to this end and from this end to this circle. And now a line to close my profile from here to here, center point arc on the origin from here to there. But I guess my center point might not have stuck, so let's merge these center points. There. And now we're fully defined. So I can close this sketch and we can move on. Going back to my model, unhighlighting things. I can choose a plane to sketch on. If I can get my view right, I think I want to sketch on this plane here, my YZ plane. From here I can make a rectangle and simply constrain that. Shift H for a horizontal dimension. From the outer edge of the rectangle to the origin will make 3 inches. We can go 2.5 inches on the near side. I'm sorry, 0.25. Shift V for vertical dimension. And we can go 0.0625 to keep a consistent blade thickness, and then the very topmost point of our rectangle to the origin, we have a max height of 2.75 inches, and we can close that. So we've just about made that sketch. I can orient and zoom properly. Now let's go back to OnShape. Let's go to the right plane sketch, and viewing from the right, I put down a very similar rectangle. I can use the super secret S key to bring up a menu where I can choose a dimension, and as before, vertical 0.25. From here to here, let's go with 3. The overall blade height, 0.0625. And then an overall height, top of the blade to the origin, 2.75. I think I'm going to make an executive change. Let's make that 0.75 instead. And complete the sketch. I'm going to also propagate that update into this sketch, 0.75. Now I want to make a plane. Might as well do so in FreeCAD since I'm here. We're going to go datum plane here, and selecting first reference, we're going to go with that corner point there. Reference 2, that bottom corner point. Reference 3, we're going to go to this outermost point on that blade, and OK. Now sketching on this plane, I can use my edge import tool. I'm going to import that bottom corner. Whoop. But I just wanted the point and not the entire line. There's that bottommost corner. Hopefully I'm looking at this in the right orientation. Let's try that again. There we go. Let me get rid of that corner. So that bottom corner in the trimetric view and the outermost corner here. I can do a center point arc from there, and I can snap onto those two lines, so I'm connected to the points that I just imported. Shift R is going to be 4.6 inches, and we're fully defined. Let's do the same thing in OnShape. Oh. Tasks and close. So in OnShape, I can create a plane similar method to the way that I've done before. This is our plane button right here. Only I have offset specified, and that would be, click flat place on their part, and you can offset a plane from that flat point. But we want to specify we're going to make a plane from 3 points. So we'll choose 1, 2, and 3. And that plane should show up. There it is. Now I can choose plane 1 and create a sketch. Now we're currently sketching on plane 1, and the view looks a little bit busy, so I'm going to hide the planes. I want to create a rim point arc. Doesn't look like it wants to snap onto those points, so I'm going to create an arc and add the constraints. Now they're selectable. We choose coincident because merge is not an option like it is in FreeCAD, but coincident does the same thing. Make coincident here, and then I can choose a dimension of 4.6 on that radius, 4.6. Now I can create the blade. Might as well do it in OnShape since I'm here. I'm going to choose a Loft feature, and that would be this button. And it's saying this profile to this profile we're going to loft. And then it gives us an option for a path. I'm going to use this line as a path, and that will be the blade. Let's do the same thing in FreeCAD. But in FreeCAD we want to choose a sweep so that we can do a multi-section, and of course I had the wrong thing highlighted, so we're going to choose sketch, and I can use the spacebar to hide that. Sketch, sweep. We're going to choose a path, which will be here, and then we go to our transform mode to multi-section, add section, and we add this sketch. And that is our extremely beautiful sweep. And if you can tell, they look quite similar between OnShape and FreeCAD. Next thing I want to do, go back onto that top plane. So make sure nothing's highlighted, create a sketch, and get on my top plane or my XY plane and create another extrusion. Starting at the origin, and then Shift R for radius. We're going to grab a 4-inch radius or an 8-inch diameter, and we can close that, and under tasks we can pad, and we'll try to be consistent, 0.0625 perhaps. And OK. And there we have a nice little base to work with. I want to also create yet another sketch on the XZ plane, or you could do the YZ plane, either one. And I want to feature a center point arc. We're going to make sure that this is vertical here. And let's go with something Shift H. So horizontal distance is going to be 4 inches. So it's going to be, the width of the part. Up here, let's go with 0.75 inches. Shift V for vertical. We'll go with this arc being something like 1 inch up. The end of this arc, 1.75. Oh, I should say 2.75, so it's the height of the part. I'm going to add a little line here. In fact, I can go with polyline. I'm going to go horizontal, vertical, and back to the other side. I can add a horizontal relation with the H key. I can select these two and make them equal with the E key. Shift V to make a vertical dimension. Go with something like 1/2 inch. And close. Now, I can do a revolved cut, or what we would call a groove, with this sketch. And notice I can specify the base Z axis. And there you can see a cut out of our blade. I like that cut, but I think that top portion is a little bit too sharp. So we'll make a quick adjustment. Instead of 0.75 inches, let's go with 2 inches and see how that looks. It's not too bad. Let's try it. Yeah, nice little blade profile there. I'm going to hide this sketch with the space bar. Let's do the same thing in OnShape. So let's choose the top plane, create a sketch. We're going to view from the top, and let's go with a circle from the origin. We can give it a dimension, 8 inches. Again, I think that was the cloud computing that didn't quite catch the 8 that I typed. There we go. Now we can extrude, and instead of a depth of 1, we're going to go 0.0625. And if you can see, we're going up into the blade as we did in FreeCAD. So these went the same way. We'll accept that. And now I can go on to my front plane and create the same sketch that I have before, viewing from the front. I've made a 3-point arc, and dimensionally made this hard to grab that origin point without grabbing that bottom point there. Oh, and of course it automatically unselects when I grab dimension there, but we just got it, so we're going to make that 2 inches. Again, that little cloud delay kind of gets you sometimes. There's our origin there. We're going to make that 4. 4. I'm getting a little delay. Maybe I'm working on a busy time or something. We're going to go 2.75 on the overall height. .75, again that cloud delay, and for some reason that didn't seem to stick. Oh, there it goes, 2.75. A little bit of a delay there. FreeCAD doesn't do that, thankfully. Now we're going to come here, 1 inch. And we can choose the arc center point and make it vertical. Selecting this line, horizontal. This line, and I can hit escape to get that relation off this line. And this line we're going to make equal. Grab a dimension here, 0.5, and we're fully constrained. So now we can do a revolve. We're going to specify in OnShape that we want to remove material from the revolve. We can merge with all, that's fine. Our revolve axis we can grab from this outer face. And then sketch regions to revolve, we're going to choose sketch 5. And you can see the preview it gives us looks good. And that's what we have so far. I can do a pattern of blades. We'll go with a circular pattern. We're going to pattern this blade. The axis will be this outer face axis. And it gives us a nice preview. Instead of 4, let's do 14. And there we have our circular pattern. Next thing that we would do well for is replicating that in FreeCAD. Now as I go to pattern this, one thing that I'm seeing is I've done my additive pipe with a cut to help shape the blade. I've realized if I try to pattern this, then if I try to pattern this groove, it will just pattern the whole part 14 times. SolidWorks and maybe OnShape gives you some options to pattern it differently, but in FreeCAD I'm going to temporarily delete my groove and just pattern my additive pipe for my polar pattern. So with this highlighted, I'm going to choose polar pattern. And I can choose 14 features. I could have done this differently. I think it's the using 2 CAD programs simultaneously. It's hard to think about the details of every one and what order to do things, but I am better to undo my groove while this generates a pattern of blades and then cut out the profile. Whereas OnShape, I'm totally fine to do either order. Okay, now that we have this, let's go with the normal sketch axis seems fine. I'm going to say OK. And now you can see I've got my sketch left over after I've deleted my groove, so we're going to re-add that. We'll say groove. I can respecify my base Z axis and say OK. And there we have the cut that we've made, which is suspiciously looking a bit like OnShape when FreeCAD's done thinking about that. Next thing I want to do is add the base that the blades are connected to, and I can do that on my front plane. So we'll create a sketch there. Oh. Going to the front view. I'm going to start by creating a 3-point arc, and it looks like I can't really reference stuff until I actually have the arc created. So there's the arc. Now I can reference this upper face, and we can choose coincident. I can add another dimension at the end of this arc. There we go. We'll make that 0.75. Then I can give this an overall height relative to the bottom, and we'll make that 2.75. Finally, it's looking for a particular radius, and I guess I should be dimensioning this bottom part of this arc a little bit better too. We'll grab the end of this arc to the edge. I'll make that something like 0.25. Finally, it's looking for what radius do we want to make this, and probably go with something like radius of 3. And then from here, if I choose a line, which of course in OnShape is the equivalent of the FreeCAD polyline command, you can make sure that we're horizontal here. Vertical there, and we should be fully constrained. Now I can choose revolve, and my revolve axis I can choose as part of my sketch. And there is more of a complete looking compressor. Why don't we do the same thing in FreeCAD? I can choose a plane, and this would be more the equivalent of my front plane. So I'll sketch here. I can cut my view to see a little bit more clearly. Center point arc should be just fine. And I can start adding some dimensions. I can also run my edge import tool, and that mark should mark the very end of my compressor. Shift H to add a horizontal dimension, 0.25, and then let's go with these 2 points being H for horizontal. Shift V for vertical dimension. We can go with our consistent overall height, 2.75 as before. Shift H. Horizontally we want this to be 0.75 inches. Shift R. I think we had a 3-inch radius here. And now I can use polyline to simply fill in, again polyline to fill in everything else. That's acting kind of funky, so I'm going to start down here. We're going to go H for horizontal. H to make sure that's horizontal, and there we have it. So I can close that and immediately add in my tasks revolve feature. And okay. While this is updating, I can head over here to OnShape. You'll see that these are different colors. That's because I'm having different bodies here. This revolve didn't merge with the rest. We can manually merge that using a Boolean operation. And I choose this one part of my body that I want to merge. I can choose this extrude down here as well. You can see we're updating here incrementally. Now I can choose this blade and the next blade and the next one and so on. With everything consistently relatively one color, I think I just unselected that. There's kind of a delay with this cloud compute again. I think it's kind of an issue for my style of modeling, but There we go. So looks like everything is selected okay. We're going to, of course, with union selected, hit the green box here. And now we've created a Boolean where everything is the same, and I can choose spaces where the fins intersect with the rest of the body of the compressor, which is what we want. Going back now, we've got this compressor worked out well. Maybe I want to add some fillets, and I want to see how this would fillet on the edge. So if I choose this edge where, you know, the blade intersects with the body of the compressor, and the fillet button, there we go. If I did something high like 200 thou, let's see if it can handle a fillet that large, and it most certainly can. So I'm going to add some references, and I'm going to fillet all the way around this thing. I'll probably time-lapse this so you don't have to take a look at it. Okay, so I've added 200 thou or 0.2 inch radius fillets on the leading edge of every blade. One interesting difference that I found is if I edit this fillet, let me deselect some of these points. I find that if I select this edge, nothing really happens. It doesn't add a fillet. I have to have both of these edges selected for a fillet to be added. Whereas in FreeCAD I can select either of those edges and a fillet is added for the full length. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Let's finish this up by selecting this face, sketching. We'll choose a circle. Astute viewers would find that we could probably have done this by changing the dimensions on the revolve, and you certainly can do that as well. We're going to choose a dimension, give this 0.75 inch diameter, and we can cut and extrude through all. In OnShape we simply specify extrude, remove material, and the end condition is listed as through all. Oh, but it seems to be missing the sketch region, so we'll select that. And we'll merge with all, and we can add in a chamfer. .200 thou by 45 is fine, and that would be probably a finishing feature for OnShape. Again, you can modify the revolve feature to create this hole instead of cutting a new hole. I'm going to go ahead and do a pocket from the part design workbench, and we have a radius. Since this is a radius, we'll say 0.75 divided by 2, and then close, tasks, pocket, and through all. And now I'll select this edge for a 200 thou chamfer. And there we have a relatively complex part with a decent amount of NURB surfacing on FreeCAD and OnShape. Hope this video was helpful, and if it was, please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.